And now another no-brainer money-saving tip from Progressive.
That doesn't sound good.
Paper shredder's jammed, but I think I fixed it.
Oh, well, try shredding these $50 bills then.
Seems like it's working.
Better try another $400.
Stop. Instead of using money, use regular paper. And here's a better tip from Progressive on how not to waste money. Don't pay too much for car insurance. Drivers who switch and save could save hundreds. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary.
With Tim Hortons 2 hot breakfast sandwiches for $6 deal, you can mix and match your favorites. Mix and match between savory sausage or naturally hickory smoked bacon. Mix and match between an English muffin or flaky biscuit. Any two served with a freshly cracked egg and melted cheese. You can even mix and match how you share it. One for you, one for them. Two for them, or two just for you. There's no wrong way to mix and match this tasty deal. 2 breakfast sandwiches for just $6. It's time for Tim's. Limited time at participating U.S. restaurants. Single item at regular price. Modifications and tax extra. Additional terms apply.
Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the Hump Day edition of the Yard. A lot to talk about today. A lot going on, shall we say. Big news, obviously, out of the city of Starkville. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show. There are a lot of things I want to talk about today. The first and foremost is, again, programming note. Today's show will air, I'm recording this midday, and then we'll record tomorrow night for your Friday show. And by the time that you guys digest that, I'll be back in New Mexico, and then we'll record a Monday show at some point. And then I'm not sure if I'm coming back Tuesday or Wednesday, but I'll let you know on Monday. Probably record you a show. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how things go. But, you will get 3 shows this week and next week. And I tell you this, too. Look at the numbers here. The Boneyard had our biggest year ever last year. It wasn't even close. Boneyard continues to grow. And as I shared years ago, that you're being the best friend your friends have when you retweet the show or you share it on Facebook. Very, very proud of what we've been able to build here over the years. Sometimes it just blows my mind how long I've been doing the show. I remember in the very beginning, I was reluctant to do the show, to be quite honest with you. Bulldog Sports Radio contacted me about doing a show, kind of specializing in recruiting. Then it kind of evolved over time. We used to do a 25-minute show. That's what it was, 25 minutes. I was still in Baton Rouge back then. Of course, I've been in Starkville now almost 9 years. But for a couple of years there, we're doing this show over 10 years now. It's pretty crazy. But it was a 25-minute show. We had three advertisers then. We have 4 now. Of course, we have those programmatic ads as well. But we've come a long way. And there's no point in me being here if you guys aren't listening. And so many of you have come up to me at book signings or at a gas station or at a ball game or wherever and said, you know what, hey, Steve, thanks for doing the show. There are a lot of people out there that live outside of the big maroon bubble that, are able to depend on us to give them some news. And so I appreciate it. And probably the people that I appreciate the most are our servicemen and women that have messaged me over the years, and there have been countless of them that have said, you know what, Steve, it's nice to get a little taste of home. I'm over here in harm's way, whether I'm in Iraq or Afghanistan or Germany or wherever. So you know what, it's nice to be able to log on and be able to listen to a little bit about Mississippi State and feel like a regular human being for a while. It is my gift to be able to give that to you. And I appreciate your sacrifice for our great nation and all of us here at home, because we're able to do what we want to do because you're doing the things that either we're not capable of doing or not willing to do. So thank you for all who serve. Let's thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company. You talk about service, different brand of service to say the least. But the Bulldog Burger Company out there doing a great job. Told you I had Bulldog Burger Company earlier this week. I'm always satisfied. And there are a lot of places you go, it's kind of hit or miss, a lot of consistency at Bulldog Burger Company. Have the spring rolls as your appetizer. They'll make you better looking. It's in writing. Trust the science. Trust me. I didn't become beautiful Steve Robertson without a little help. Have that great restaurant quality hamburger. I'm a fan of the Sloppy Joe sliders too. I think it's a great lunch portion. When I was a kid, when Mom said, hey, we're doing Sloppy Joes, that was a treat. That was a big deal. It didn't feel like regular supper. So it kind of takes me back a little bit to those years. It's exciting. It is. But you can get the mission. I get the pico de gallo on the side when I get that. You can get the Good Morning Burger. You can get the Freshman 15. If you're not quite ready to walk on the wild side, the Bulldog Burger is absolutely the way to go. I'm a big proponent of dessert to go. Get that chocolate shake. You can drink that on the way home. Maybe you order that 10 minutes or so before you're ready to pay the check. They'll get that together for you. Bring that bread pudding home. 3 great locations to serve you. University Drive here in Star Vegas with that fabulous new patio area. Lake Harbor Drive in the Ridge and Flowwood area, and Gloucester Street there in Tupelo. Next time you're in town, go by and see those folks. If you want to get more than what you paid for when it comes to a dining experience, go to Bulldog Burger Company. A lot of people out there cutting back portions, raising prices, sneaking in special convenience taxes and things like that. So they're asking you to pay more for less. That's not the case at Bulldog Burger Company. The same great taste with the same great price, same great service as always. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. M-E-A-T. All right. Let's talk about basketball. I sound like a broken record. I know. I do. I'm not a moral victories guy by any stretch. But I was proud of our effort last night. I thought we wore it down a little bit on perimeter defense late. But this ball game was tied at the half, 23-all. Nearly 9,000 people paid to see it. It's a great atmosphere in the Humphrey Coliseum last night. But, hey, we thought we were about to see one of the biggest wins in recent history from Mississippi State men's basketball. Couldn't quite pull it off. But offensively, things got going for us a little bit in the second half. But, again, Tennessee found their range from the three-point line. Next thing you know, we're in trouble. They outscore us by 11 there in the second half and win the game 70-59. Tennessee advances their record to 15-3 overall and 5-1 in the league. Bulldogs now 12-6, have lost 3 in a row, and now 1-5 in the SEC. And I read some commentary at times on social media. And as I've said many times before, the best thing about social media and the worst thing is that anybody can use it. There's no special skill. You just kind of sign up for an account and you can say whatever you want. It's not always the best of things. But some comments last night are like, oh my gosh, this team is pitiful. I just don't agree. Now, are the results short of what we expect? Yeah, they are. But we all expected this team at times to struggle. I think we're struggling on the offensive end perhaps more than we expected. Let's just be fair about that. But I don't think anybody expected this to be an NCAA tournament team. Tennessee is. Tennessee, a top 10 team. We gave them all they wanted and then some last night. We just couldn't close the deal. But again, I'm excited about the direction of Mississippi State men's basketball. We have the effort. We have the character. We need some more offensive skill. That's the thing you look at here. But in the first half, we held Tennessee to 32% shooting. And again, they got it going there in the second half. 88.89% from three-point line in the second half. They were 8 of 9. And that's really the difference in the ballgame. We held them at 2 of 15 in the first half. They found some open looks. They knocked down some contested shots. And it's just that kind of ball game. And then 14 of 15 from the free throw line for them. So they did the little things and did the things they had to do. And, of course, they were missing a couple players last night too. And so we didn't get them at full strength and missed a golden opportunity to put this thing away. But not our best effort. But, again, I thought we played extremely hard. We got out rebounded by 8, 39-31. We did get them in a little bit of foul trouble and really did a good job ourselves kind of defending without fouling. Cam Matthews picked up maybe a frustration foul or two late, but he was the only guy that had any real issue. I think that's, the thing you look at here with this team is that we're beginning to kind of play within ourselves. Offensively last night, again, it was kind of up and down, but Shaquille Moore leads Mississippi State with 20 points, and that's coming off the bench. 29 minutes of action. 5 of 13 from the floor, 2 of 7 from 3, but 8 of 8 from the line. Bulldogs 14 of 22. Free throw shooting was abysmal for a while. The last 2 ball games, it has been much better, shall we say. Assist turnover ratio, not very good. We turned it over just 10 times, but just 9 assists. We also had 10 steals on the night. So we're turning them over a little bit. Tennessee just 4 steals, but we also forced 17 turnovers, and again, that's about your defensive effort. But they line it up and they shoot it from 3, and that was really the big separator in the ballgame for us. Tolu Smith, another double-double, 11 points, 10 rebounds for him. pretty solid night for him, but we need a little more offensive production. If we're going to be able to beat a team like Tennessee, we're going to have our stars play like stars. Deshaun Davis with 9 points, DJ Jeffries with 9, Eric Reed Jr. with 7, Cam Matthews with 3. But, Cam is not a guy that we expect to be a prolific scorer. He's a guy that's setting picks and getting rebounds and playing good defense for us. Probably our best defender, period, is Cameron Matthews. The guy plays with a really high level of intensity. But we come up short. Again, kind of part of the deal. 24 points in the paint, 20 off turnovers, 11 second chance points, 7 fast break points, 10 bench points. The game was tied 8 times and changed the lead 7 times. So it was a competitive ball game. We just kind of ran out of gas late, and this is what happens. More times than not, the better team finds a way to win, especially late. And that's what happened. We just simply couldn't get it done. And we'll take a quick look here at the final few minutes. Again, a very competitive ball game. You look up there under 12. State is up. State is up 1. Up 1. Was that right? And we're down 1. Yeah, 11:25. We hit a 3-pointer from Deshaun Davis that pushes us up 2. So 44-42. And a lot of people that weren't watching the game decided to turn it on. You're thinking, hey, we got a chance here to pick up a top 10 win. We get to the under 8. And we're down after the 3-point basket from DJ Jeffries. It's a 1-point game. Tennessee leads 50-49. And the Bulldogs just seemed like they just wouldn't go away. They stretch it back out to 6, right around the 4-minute mark, and then a 3-point shotter from Tennessee makes it 64-55. So it's a 9-point game, and I think that's when we all feel like this is probably ball game here. It's just all of a sudden you get down 3 possessions with under 3 minutes to go. It's difficult to come back there. State makes 1 free throw to pull within 8. And the next thing you know, under 2, it's a 10-point game, and it goes back out to as much as 12. And State ultimately loses by 11. But, right there at 6 minutes, you're in the ball game. And I venture to say right there at the 5-minute mark, you're in the ball game. After Deshaun Davis knocks down that 3, you start thinking, you know what, we get a stop here, we got a chance. But instead they respond with a big 3. And so proud of the effort, not proud of the result. And again, I just encourage you to have a little patience with this team. We just need some offensive pieces. It's that simple. The effort level is there. The defensive effort is there. Rebounding, we're competing. More times than not, we're getting out there and we're at least, within 50% of the rebounds are going our way. In some games, we actually dominate on the boards. But when you play a team like Tennessee, every possession matters. And that's kind of what happened here. I'm not going to say we lost our composure, but we missed on some open looks late, and they didn't. And that ended up being the separation there. But when we had a chance to do some big things, just couldn't quite pull it off. But Bulldogs be back in action very soon. I tell you guys, once we can ever get through the Big 12 Challenge and get into maybe not playing the elite teams in this conference, we'd feel a little bit better. But we will be at home on Saturday against Florida. And then we're on the road at Alabama next Wednesday. But Saturday in Start Vegas, that's a 6:30 tip on the SEC Network. If you can come out and be a part of that, we encourage you to do so. We'll preview the show a little bit later in the week, or preview that game a little bit later in the week. But if we can get through that, if we could find a way to win a game or two and then get to the Big 12 Challenge against TCU, things really begin to even up a little bit. We got to go to South Carolina. We get Missouri at our place. We get OSU. We're at Arkansas. Kentucky, it comes here. We go to Ole Miss. We're at Missouri, A&M, and then South Carolina for senior night. And we wrap up the regular season with a trip to Vanderbilt. So you start looking there, with the exception of maybe Kentucky, and I guess you could argue Arkansas, Missouri's playing a pretty good brand of basketball too. You got a chance here to maybe even this thing up. A lot of in the preseason, we're all talking, man, if we can find a way to get anywhere close to 500. I don't see it at this point. I don't. But in no way am I down on Chris Jans and that staff. I really admire the competitive nature of this team. We just don't quite have the talent yet to compete with the better teams in this league. And it's his job to get them. And he will. I don't have any doubt about that. I think Chris Jans do a great job finding the players that kind of fit his system and the blue-collar appeal of everything. So better days are ahead. We're kind of having to endure this season rather than enjoy it. But the difference is with rare exception, State is in every one of these games. I mean, that's the thing. Tennessee absolutely demolished us up in Knoxville. But outside of that, it's been really competitive. Of course, you win your first 11, right? You drop a very competitive game in Lincoln against Drake. You play Alabama here, and that was a game for a while, and then we kind of wore down, and then Tennessee gets us. We bounce back and beat Ole Miss. We lose at Georgia, a game we should have won. Then Georgia's playing kind of up and down, but playing pretty well. And then you could argue we should have won at Auburn. And so you look at this and you say, okay, yes, it's year one, but it's not like that we're getting absolutely demolished on the court. With rare exception, we're in every one of these games. And so if you can find a semblance of offense, if you can put some runs together late, you got a chance to steal some of these games because we're, more times than not, we're holding teams at or beneath their season average. And just give Chris Jans a little time to work. I know we all want to win. We want to win big. And I appreciate everybody that turned out the hump last night, came out to support the team. I think many of you are buying into what's happening with Mississippi State men's basketball. And so I encourage you, continue to make that investment because I believe you're going to reap the benefits from that sooner rather than later. Let's jump over to the women's side. Ladies will be in action tomorrow night against Auburn. We've talked about that here on Monday's show. It's a game we should win. It is. Ladies are now 13-5, 2-3 in the conference. I haven't watched Auburn's women play this year. You know how it was back when we were rolling. You'd watch everybody. But Thursday night, it is a whiteout, so we encourage our fans to wear white. Now, if you're a student, I know many of you are, the first 100 students get a free popcorn voucher. All the more reason to get in line early. Who doesn't like free popcorn, right? Everything is kind of made better with popcorn, right? I used to eat popcorn for breakfast every day. Get that bag of microwave popcorn, throw a little Tabasco in there, get some chocolate milk. That may sound gross to you, but it was heaven for me. But free popcorn for the first 100 students, right? So be sure and get out there and support the team. And we need a great atmosphere. And I think what we're seeing from our students is very positive. I love the students. Of course, one of my children is a senior at Mississippi State, and then when she graduates, we'll have another Robertson move into the student body up there at Mississippi State. Excited about that. Be 3 of my 4 that'll be Mississippi State alums when it's all said and done. Encouraging the oldest to get his master's degree online through Mississippi State so he also can claim to be a Bulldog alum. But you guys are having a great experience. And again, the students kind of set the tone for our atmosphere there. So students, I love you, and I appreciate your contributions to Mississippi State athletics. I want to encourage you too, if you're a student. When you begin to think about graduation and an exit strategy, there are a lot of universities out there that already talk to you guys about capital giving. We don't really do that at Mississippi State, and we should. We should get people to take ownership in the program. I know it's difficult kind of starting out life, and it's like, you know what, Steve, I'm just kind of learning to pay bills. But I think if you get in the habit of giving early and contributing to Mississippi State, it's an important aspect of things. It doesn't matter if it's $50 a month, $100 a year, whatever. Any contribution that you make is very much appreciated, whether it be to the Bulldog Initiative or the Bulldog Club. And as always, I encourage you to be a season ticket holder whenever you can. There were times, I had 4 kids at home. We wanted to be season ticket holders, and we were Sky Dogs. Many of you were up there with us, and they had those cool little gifts. I still got some of them around here. The Sky Dog gift for every game. We kept them. We're proud to have them because we're Bulldogs. And so there's not a lot of those incentives these days for that sort of thing. But I encourage you to get out for the love of your team and love of the university and go support the ladies. Again, I believe the ladies ultimately will make the NCAA tournament. Not expecting the men. Maybe we sneak into the NIT. But I think the ladies have the pieces to be very competitive in the Southeastern Conference. And I think that's an important aspect of this too. Whereas, I think there are a lot of teams out there that are kind of happy to see the Mississippi State men on their schedule because they feel like they can probably outscore them. I don't know if that's really the case with the women. When the women are clicking, they're very difficult to beat. Very, very, very difficult to beat. And again, we didn't have a very challenging non-conference schedule, but the ladies are 13-5 right now. And they have a really good chance of finishing at 500 or better in this league. You saw it against South Carolina. You've got good coaching. You have talent to go toe-to-toe with the best team in the country, probably the current dynasty in women's basketball and only lose that game by 7, it's pretty important. It is. And again, it's a measuring stick. It's still a loss, right? It's still a loss, to say the least. But I think that many of you said, you know what, I'm going to buy into this. Because with the level of effort they're playing with, because a lot of people got off the bandwagon after we lost to Ole Miss and said, hey, we don't lose to them. We can't lose to them. We did. We did. Still got a chance to get even with them up at their place. And give Coach Yo and them credit. They're playing well. They have been. She's turned that program around. Then you lose to Tennessee, and you start thinking, well, we're 1-2 in the league. And then you lose to South Carolina. But you bounce back and you blast A&M, not a good A&M team. And so that makes this Auburn game so important. We have a chance to pull even in the league. And you're not going to see South Carolina again the rest of the year unless you see them in the SEC tournament. So every other game you look at and say, we got a puncher's chance here. We got a chance. Get Tennessee at our place here in a couple weeks. Need everybody to turn out for that. Tennessee's playing well. LSU obviously playing well. But you got a shot. And we need to make sure that we're out there competing at a high level and getting great fan support. We had to go down to the Pete Maravich Assembly Center to play LSU, and with Kim Mulkey down there. I don't know if you know this. Still a trivia question that she is former LSU shortstop Kramer Robertson's mom. Her name is actually Robertson. No relation to me. Her husband may be. Her son may be. But I think Kim Mulkey's a great coach, and I think that's a big game hunting type situation for Scott Woodard to go out there and get a named coach like that. And LSU obviously is rolling, but it's a lot of basketball left to be played between now and then. Real quickly, let's look at the SEC women's basketball standings and just kind of see what's in front of us. You know what I'm saying? It's like sometimes we get so caught up in kind of what's happening with us, and we get in the big maroon bubble. We don't always see what else is out there. But looking at the conference standings here, and I appreciate so many people that keep that information handy for us. I wish the folks at Google could do a better job of that. Don't you? You know what I'm talking about? Like you go Google SEC football schedule, and it gives you like the entire country. And they may think that's the right way to go, but if I wanted the national football schedule, I would go look for that. But looking at the standings here, if we could find them, my goodness. Here we go. LSU 6-0, South Carolina 6-0, Tennessee 6-0, Ole Miss 5-1, Arkansas 4-1, Alabama 3-2, Missouri 3-3. And there's Mississippi State 2-3, Georgia 2-4, Florida 1-4, Kentucky 1-5, Auburn 0-5, Vanderbilt 0-5, A&M 0-6. Of course, State's 2 wins over the bottom 2 teams in the standings. However, you're going to play the next 3: Florida, Kentucky, and Auburn here in the weeks to come. So again, Mississippi State may be a middle-of-the-pack team in the SEC this year. Maybe so. And maybe you can't truly compete with LSU, South Carolina, Tennessee at this point. Ole Miss came in here and I thought played well against us. We should have won the game, and late in the ball game in that fourth quarter, they kind of took charge. But you start thinking about here, Mississippi State being in the middle, we could finish in the top half of the league, and I think ultimately found our way into the NCAA tournament, which would be remarkable in Sam Purcell's first year. Sam is also implementing a system, installing his culture here. The good thing is that Vic Schaefer recruited some of these players, and so they know what it's like to win. They know what it's like to be around, a coaching staff. It's very demanding of them. And then we kind of lost our way there, for a couple of years. But we're not so far removed from the great successes of Vic Schaefer that we're just starting from scratch. It's just simply not the case. And I'm excited again about the future. We talked about that on Monday's show, but we really need to find a way to get hot here and go on a bit of a run. Even there's so many of you that are so incredibly loyal to Mississippi State women's basketball. A lot of you really done a great job there, kind of making that thing happen. But and people have kind of got in the habit of going for years and years and years. Like when David Murray was the SID for women's basketball, he could take attendance by hand, and it was free to attend. It's not like that anymore. We've kind of grown up a little bit. But again, you get Auburn, and then you get Kentucky. Both of those games in Humphrey Coliseum, and these are 2 teams that have combined to win exactly 1 SEC game. You got to have them both. You absolutely got to have them both. I don't think there's any question about it. And then we get that road trip, to Oxford. So you could be in a situation where you've won 3 in a row and kind of got your legs under you a little bit. And that's next Thursday night in Oxford. So if you're in Mississippi and considering some entertainment options, that may be for you. I encourage you to go support the team whenever you can. Excited, as you are as well. All right, time for today's Top 10 list is brought to you as always by closewithblair.com. Blair Chandler is a mortgage professional. Blair has been in the industry 21 years, back-to-back years, top 1% close ratio in the country. If you got to do business with somebody that knows the business they're in. There are a lot of people that are just starting out, and listen, God bless them and wish them the best. But if you're going to trust something as important as your mortgage to an individual, work with somebody that's got decades of experience. If you've been in any industry for 20 plus years, you're very established. You know the ins and outs of that, and that's Blair Chandler. He will go and fight tooth and nail with underwriting to get your loan approved. He knows how to structure loans, so maybe perhaps things just kind of skate right through. Other people may not have that know-how. Visit him today at closewithblair.com. That's C-L-O-S-E with Blair, B-L-A-I-R.com. Now let me give you his cell number. His personal cell number, 601-500-2344, 601-500-2344. You can call and text him direct. You don't have to go through a receptionist or go to somebody's voicemail or hope that your message gets delivered, right? You can go directly to him because he wants to be available to you. If you mention to him you heard about him on the Boneyard, he's going to pay for your appraisal. That's about a $500 value. A lot of fees associated with getting a mortgage approved. Blair Chandler is willing to pay some of those for you. Again, that's Blair Chandler at 601-500-2344. Okay. I turned to Roy today and said, Roy, I need some suggestions for the top 10 list. It turned out our friend Gordon Griffin had a good idea. I'll read you Gordon's message. Because, see, Gordon is one of those kinds of folks, too, that has done a lot of stuff. You know, we got married, raised kids, all that kind of stuff. And he says, how about new albums or songs from old bands? I haven't kept up with recent releases from some bands that I previously followed fairly closely. Life gets busy, there's changes in how music is dispersed, etc. So I thought this might be a fun one. And you know what, Gordon? You came exactly to the right guy. Because while many of you have moved on, I have not. I'm not lost in the 80s. I still enjoy some modern rock, but I still keep up with the bands that I loved, that I grew up with. I tell you guys, many times when I travel, which will probably be the case on Friday when I'm traveling, I listen to that Operation Mindcrime album from Queensryche in its entirety. It's a concept album, tells a great story. There's like a little acting and some things like that happens in between the songs, and the songs kind of set the tone. It's a musical in many respects. It's incredible. I love it. One of my favorite albums of all time. I would venture to say the album is darn near perfect. And I've had those discussions lately too. What are, give me a couple of albums from the 80s rock scene that are perfect from start to finish. Well, that's one of them for me. For sure. There's no skips. And so I'm going to catch you up today. Some of your favorite bands, some of your favorite rock bands from the 80s have released new music in the last, 15 months or so. And you may have missed it. And so many of you get tired of picking music and you get tired of podcasts. And, when I travel, I listen to a lot of Dateline NBC podcasts because it holds my attention. Because usually when I'm traveling, it's not just a trip down to Jackson, right? It's usually something out of state. And so I need something to kind of occupy my mind and take my mind off the, in some cases, thousands of miles I have to travel. So I'm going to give you a playlist today of new material from some of your old favorites, thanks to the suggestion of Gordon Griffin. Okay, number 10 on the list is a band that I named my youngest son after this band's lead singer. It's Ian Astbury from The Cult. Had a chance to see those guys at Rocklahoma, and we were guests of them. It's very, very nice. My friend Mark took care of all that. But The Cult released an album called Under the Midnight Sun earlier this year, or late last year. And it's called Under the Midnight Sun. The track that we're going to go with, there are a couple of singles that have already been released. I like the one, Give Me Mercy. I think Billy Duffy's guitar on this is incredible. It is quintessential Cult. Ian Astbury has always been that big voice. You can tell, maybe he's aging a little bit, a little raspy in the low register, but can still hit the big notes. All right, number 9. It seems like this band is never going to slow down, ever. And I'm proud to say that Dave Mustaine is in recovery. He is an advocate for people in recovery and is still suffering addict. And I know some people in recovery that have met him. I have not. I would like to meet him someday. But Megadeth released an album called The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead. And probably my favorite track on that album, and there are a bunch of them that are absolutely blistering. It's a song called We'll Be Back from Megadeth. It's number 9 on your list today, We'll Be Back from Megadeth. Number 8, now this is a band too that I liked an awful lot in the beginning. And once they got super popular and then all the preps started listening to them, and all of a sudden I'd go to school and there'd be some kid with acid wash jeans on with his jeans rolled up and his Dexters on with no socks, and he'd be wearing a Def Leppard Hysteria shirt. All of a sudden, while that album was incredible, they kind of lost my appeal. Right? You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's funny how life works sometimes. Like you get all into a band and all of a sudden they get very successful and it's like, oh, they're sellouts, right? It's funny how that works. It's like we want to keep these bands like our own little secret. Like kind of keep them to ourselves, which is selfish. But I'm happy that people have had some success. But even after Hysteria, I kind of stayed on the Def Leppard train, though I do think that High and Dry and Pyromania are the better albums. Def Leppard was big. They were huge. And on the Hysteria Tour, they played in the round. And if you went and saw that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The stage was round, and they played it in the middle of the Coliseum, and they just walked around, and it was pretty cool. But Def Leppard released an album called Diamond Star Halos here recently, and the first single from that album is pretty strong. It's a track called Kick. Maybe you're unfamiliar with it. I encourage you to check it out. Def Leppard's still releasing new material regularly. All right, number 7, a band that I saw recently with the homie Sam Denton in Memphis. Had never seen these guys before, had never met them before. I'd interacted with Ace Van Johnson, some on Twitter. Ace is a guy that uses his platform to help get dogs adopted and things like that. He's a pit bull advocate. I'm not a pit bull person, but I respect the fact that somebody that have received some type of acclaim and have built a following based on their talent will use it to help other causes. And so I respect him for that. I had a chance to tell him that. And one of my favorite albums from last year is from LA Guns. It's Checkered Past. I like the album pretty much from start to finish. There are a couple songs in there that I might skip over, but my favorite track on that album is a guitar-driven track. I think it's Tracy Guns at its absolute best. It's a song called Cannonball. Absolutely love it. It opens up the album. There's a couple other ones on there that are a little bit different. But Cannonball will absolutely get in your face a little bit. So if you're looking for a guitar-driven, driving in your face, get out of my way track, it's Cannonball from LA Guns. Number 6, my friends and Lillian Axe recorded From Womb to Tomb last year. And they were gracious enough to do a tour stop here in Starkville for the first time ever. And came and headlined Rock Vegas for it. What a great night that was. I had a lot of fun. It's always cool to kind of, worlds were colliding, right? It's like my friends in the rock world are coming to see my friends in the sports world. And so I appreciate Steve, Blaze, and everybody involved with Lillian Axe for what they did, and hope to see them here in a few weeks. Steve had surgery here recently for carpal tunnel syndrome, and which is tough for a guitarist, but he's back playing again. They had an acoustic show him and Brent did down in Baton Rouge, and I wasn't able to make it down there for that. But anytime that Lillian is within a reasonable driving distance, I go to the show. And we may be in Chalmette here in a few weeks going to see him. We're just got to see how things play out. But From Womb to Tomb is a concept album. It is much different than the rest of the catalog, and it is also the first album with Brent Graham on vocals. Brent is a huge guy, huge. Really big guy. I'm a big guy. He makes me look small. But my favorite track off From Womb to Tomb, I know a lot of people are thinking, you know what, hey, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. No, it's the Golden Dragon. I love Steve's guitar work on this, and unbeknownst to many of you, Stevie Blaze writes everything. Writes absolutely everything. So he wrote the album, and he's already worked on the second one, and when they came to Starkville, they played the song called Feelings of Absent live for the very first time. So that's something that's kind of a trivia question, I guess, for those of us that are Lillian fans. But they're currently, this weekend, shooting a video for that, which will be the second single from the album From Womb to Tomb. But Golden Dragon, that's the one for me. I like Feelings of Absence, but Golden Dragon, that one really gets to me. All right, so number 5 on our list, some more friends of ours. And I love having a chance to hang out with these guys anytime they're within a reasonable driving distance. I try to go. Chad and Danny, Tammy, Sam, Ronnie. I love the direction of things. Faster Pussycat has released some new music here. And I think probably the best single they've released, maybe since the Whipped album. Maybe. And that's on your list today. It's Like a Ghost from Faster Pussycat, number 5. And very quintessential sleaze rock, guitar driven, does a great job. Tammy is great. And for those of you that don't know, Tammy is in recovery now. And so we get a chance to talk about that a little bit when we get together. And I do consider those guys my friends, and I feel a sense of obligation to go support them when they come. And so if Faster Pussycat is ever within a couple of hours or even a little bit longer, if you're going to that show, chances are I'll be there. And really happy for these guys. And they have done, in many respects, kind of reinvented themselves as a touring and traveling band. For a long time, they didn't get to get out and do a whole lot. But the band puts on a tremendous live show. I love how Ronnie and Sam kind of do the dual lead thing now. And the tone of the guitar work is very, very similar to the classic Faster Pussycat sound. And I think that is evident in this song, Like a Ghost. All right, number 4. Now, this is kind of a cover of an original song, if that makes sense. And maybe I'm conflating the issue here. But Guns N' Roses has not released any true new material in a long time. Chinese Democracy was kind of a joke for a long time. We finally got that done. Of course, Bumblefoot and Buckethead played the guitar on that. And then we had the reunion with Slash and Duff back in the band. Izzy, of course, has not kept the chops up, and they tried to make it work. Steven Adler wanted to join. They just haven't been able to pull that together. But you do have a version of Guns N' Roses now that is pretty true to the original. Now, there was a song that was recorded during the Chinese Democracy sessions called Hard School. And that was released in late September of 2021. The EP came out in early 2022. But the great song is Hard School. Now, on that EP, you've got a couple live tracks, and you've got a couple of previously unreleased songs, Absurd and Hard School. I think Hard School kind of goes back to the classic Guns N' Roses sound. And there's rumors of a new album in the works. Wouldn't that be incredible? I know they're touring the world now and selling out arenas. People are happy to see Guns N' Roses again live. People want to rock. It's just that simple. People want to rock, but there are a lot of bands out there that aren't giving them a reason to go buy a ticket or go buy a record. That's one of the things that I think is wrong with the modern rock scene. There's just not this relationship between the fans and the bands that there once were. And nowadays, you can go to a show, and chances are you get a chance to meet your heroes. Sometimes I go see these modern rock bands, and it's like, a guy steps up on stage like he just got done, working an 8-hour shift at Subway. Image matters. I know people say it doesn't. The music matters most. No, when you go to a live show, you want to see a show. You don't want to just see something you could see anywhere else. I love the folks at Dave's Dark Horse. I do. But I don't want to see them at a major show not putting on a major show. It's one thing to just plug in and play, at a bar and grill or something. It's another thing, when people are going to go pay $40, $50 for a ticket, you better put on a show. And so I think that's one of the things too. I remember being a kid, like when I would go see Motley or Whitesnake or whoever, I couldn't believe I was in the same room with them. It's like, is this real? Are you sure? Am I really here? Is this happening? And even now when I go to some shows and I see a band I hadn't seen before, it's like, I can't believe it. I'm so glad I finally get to see this band in person. But I think Guns N' Roses, number one, is a band that's kind of across all generations. They are a classic band. They are. And so young people and old people alike are pouring out to go see Guns N' Roses. And now, especially now that Slash is back, it's a little different. When it was just Axl with a bunch of hired musicians, it wasn't the same. Even though I do like the Chinese Democracy album, it's just something about Slash with that Les Paul and Duff laying down the bass line that makes it Guns N' Roses. All right, number 3. We mentioned him earlier in the show. One of my favorite bands of all time, even though Jeff Tate is no longer the singer. I think Todd LaTorre does a good job. I think this is the best Queensryche album since Jeff Tate left the band. And I know a lot of people are like, it's just not the same. And you know what? I agree. It's not the same. That's not to say it's not good. I think this new album from Queensryche, Digital Noise Alliance, is a masterpiece. I think it is fabulous. If you have ever loved Queensryche, I would encourage you, put this on and listen to it, and you'll be glad you did. My favorite track on that album is a deeper track. It's a song called Realms. I love the guitar on this. I had a chance to go see him with Judas Priest in South Haven with Roy. I had a conflict. I couldn't go. I double booked. I had to go do the speaking gig rather than go to the show. And I hope it's not my last chance to see Judas Priest and Queensryche, but it is. At some point, there is the final show, right? But I love this new Queensryche album. I listen to it when I travel. And again, it's one of those albums you can just kind of put on from start to finish. And even if you're not familiar with the tracks, I think you'll find some things that you really like. It's kind of a journey. All right, number 2, off the Patient number 9 album. And we just talked about this on the Jeff Beck list. It's Ozzy Osbourne. There are so many good songs on this album. I think it's the best Ozzy album, probably, I don't know, maybe since, I don't want to go as far back as No More Tears, but maybe the height of the Mike Inez, Zakk Wylde version of the Ozzy Osbourne experience. It's great. Now, the song that I'm going with, and there's a reason that I picked this one. Number 1, it is an amazing guitar track called Immortal. And I saw a meme yesterday. It's like, what would the odds be of if you made a bet that Motley Crue would still be alive back in '84? They'd be alive in 2023. Would you know, what would be your take? And people are like, the same thing for Ozzy. And it is amazing Ozzy is still alive, considering his substance abuse issues, and he's supposedly working a program of recovery now. But still making great music, man. He does. And so when you hear Immortal, you're going to think, man, this is incredible. This guitar track is incredible. Well, let me tell you who the guitar player is. It's Mike McCready from Pearl Jam. Oh, that's right. You weren't expecting that. And you're going to be amazed. You're going to be absolutely amazed to hear Mike McCready play metal. Because you've heard him play Pearl Jam and Mother Love Bone and all that kind of stuff. You've heard him play the alternative rock stuff and the grunge stuff for years and years and years. Mike's a metal guy. Oh, you didn't know? When you plug in this track here, you're going to be like, holy smokes. Mike McCready can absolutely grind. And when you put that track on, you're going to be like, Steve, you're right. It's a whole other side of Mike McCready. And I think when you go listen to this album, there's so many guest spots. Like Zakk Wylde plays on a couple tracks, and Jeff Beck plays on a couple tracks, and then, of course, Mike McCready. You're going to be blown away. I'm telling you, if you don't listen to any other song on this list today, listen to that one. Ozzy's Immortal with Mike McCready from Pearl Jam. You're going to be amazed. But number 1 for me, I like this album in its entirety. It is kind of going back to the classic Skid Row sound. They've got a new singer. Sebastian's not with them. And talking to Scotty Hill and I have some mutual friends, and I have another friend that knows Rachel Boland, and said, hey, it's just never going to happen. I mean, there's just not a check big enough that they can write for us to perform with Sebastian. It's just, there's just so much involved. And I know from what I was told, the last negotiation, Sebastian wanted to make more than the rest of the guys in the band rather than everybody getting an equal share or whatever. And, you got to think, I mean, Scotty Hill and Rachel Boland and those guys, they've been playing these same songs for years. They've never stopped touring either. And they had Johnny Solinger for a while as a singer, and sadly Johnny died last year. He'd already been replaced. And they had Tony Harnell for a while from TNT, who was a phenomenal singer. I wish that would have worked out. But, Sebastian's kind of done his own thing, but Skid Row has still remained Skid Row for years and years and years. And so they've kept that movement alive, and so they deserve to, their equal share. But I love this track from the Skid Row's The Gang's All Here album. The title track is great, but my favorite one is Hell or High Water. I love it. It sounds like it should have been released in '89. It's absolutely phenomenal. I think that you'll dig it. It is probably my favorite song from a classic rock band, and they're not a nostalgia act. There are a lot of people out there that can't get new music recorded because they can't get a record company to front the money. That's not the case with Skid Row. It's their first new album in a few years. And yeah, they're playing the hits, and you can see them here in the next few months as they're out on the road with Buck Cherry. There's a good chance I'll go see them in March too. Kind of depends on the wife's work schedule, but I want to see them. And because we have mutual friends, I'm hoping to get on the guest list and go over there and be able to, meet the guys in Skid Row. Well, how cool would that be? But be that as it may, I think you'll enjoy the list. A lot of names from the rock scene of the 80s on this list. And again, I know your tastes change, right? Everybody kind of moves on at some point. But if you need a refresher course about kind of who was who back in the 80s, there's a lot of those bands on this list. So I hope you enjoyed the list. Those of you that were true to metal and maybe you've lost your way a little bit, this will put the accelerator maybe a little bit deeper than normal when you're driving. Great list. I love the list. I was happy to do this. Gordon, thanks so much for the idea. If you guys have ideas for the top 10 list, reach out and let us know. The best way to do that is to hit up Roy on Twitter at Dogmatic67. That's DAWGMATIC 67. And you can download our great list at Spotify also at Dogmatic67. Give Roy a follow on Twitter and Spotify. You'll be glad you did. He's not going to be tweeting out pictures of his food, okay? He's not going to do that. He's not going to do a bunch of political stuff. It's a safe follow, right? There's sometimes you follow some people and they're just flooding your timeline with nonsense. That's not Roy. Roy's a little more subdued, a little more laid back. Guy loves Mississippi State, loves music, has been a good friend to me and a good friend of the show. So again, thanks as always for your support of the top 10 list. All right, next segment of the show brought to you by your friends at Campus Bookmart. Campus Bookmart, a Starkvillian institution. I love Campus Bookmart. I recently went in there and dropped some coin, man. Had to go get some Mike Leach merch.
With Tim Hortons 2 hot breakfast sandwiches for $6 deal, you can mix and match your favorites. Mix and match between savory sausage or naturally hickory smoked bacon. Mix and match between an English muffin or flaky biscuit. Any two served with a freshly cracked egg and melted cheese. You can even mix and match how you share it. One for you, one for them. Two for them, or two just for you. There's no wrong way to mix and match this tasty deal. 2 breakfast sandwiches for just $6. It's time for Tim's. Limited time at participating U.S. restaurants. Single item at regular price. Modifications and tax extra. Additional terms apply.
You can still find that at campusbookmart.net. When you're in town, go by and see them. But if you live in perhaps the mission field, maybe outside of God's country, you can still procure some fine Mississippi State merchandise from the destination, Campus Bookmart. Go to campusbookmart.net and use promo code BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. And that'll get you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than $75, absolutely incomplete. When I go in there, I always drop 75 plus. I don't order a whole lot because it's local for me. But, because you listen to this show, we're going to be able to help you take care of that. Be sure and visit them today. Bully Shop's been completely renovated. Everything's upstairs now. They're out of textbook business, which allowed them to expand their selection of Mississippi State merchandise to the greatest selection in the known universe. Again, that's campusbookmart.net, promo code BSR. Okay, perhaps our top story. Tulu Griffin is staying at Mississippi State. Now, we have heard here in the last couple of days things were trending in the right direction. And then yesterday, I was told by a couple of different sources that, everything is going to be okay. This morning, it was a little, up and down, I guess. Everybody felt good, but also felt a little bit nervous. Until they make the formal announcement, you just simply never know. And then shortly after noon today, Tulu Griffin tweets out from his personal Twitter account, "Thank you, Coach Arnett, Michael Tardy, and my Bulldog family. I'm back," with the eye emoji, hashtag Hell State. So that is huge to get Tulu back. We have talked about him extensively on the show since he announced he was going into the portal. What a big loss that would be for Mississippi State. Tulu Griffin makes Mississippi State a better football team, an absolute better football team. And anybody that disputes that, I think, just hadn't been paying attention. He is an elite kick returner. He has incredible vision and, of course, incredible foot speed. He has been underutilized at Mississippi State, and I think that's where probably some of this comes from, is the fact that Tulu needs to be on the field more. I think we all know this. That's something I think that we can all agree, is that we need to make Tulu Griffin a bigger part of our offense, and my hope is Kevin Barbay will do that. Chad Bumpus, of course, will know how to utilize him. I think their skill sets are somewhat similar. And to be quite honest with you, all due respect to Bump, even in his prime, I think Tulu could beat him in a foot race. So we get Tulu Griffin back, and I'll tell you, it's one of those things. It's like we're always waiting to exhale. Pardon the pun, but it's like there's always something. And it seems like Mississippi State has had, a lot to worry about here in recent weeks. Obviously, Coach Mike Leach passes away unexpectedly. There is a very short, but I think very effective coaching search as you get Zach Arnett promoted from within. Then we disassemble the offensive coaching staff, And then there's all this, trying to find an offensive coordinator, and that search proved to be a little bit tumultuous at times, but ended really well. Then there's Dylan Johnson that leaves. Ra leaves. I mean, it's like every time you turn around, there's never a chance to just kind of stop and kind of get, your bearings. So my hope is now that the portal will close in less than 12 hours now, that we don't expect any drama for a while. Just over a couple weeks now, we'll have signing day, obviously, and we've got some new enrollees that are joining our program from the transfer portal. And so it should be good news for a while. We shouldn't have this thing every single day, just kind of holding your breath and clutching your pearls and just saying, okay, what's going to happen today? Because it's been so up and down, up and down, up and down. Well, this is very much a very positive development for Mississippi State to get Tulu back. The thing that I worry about, not specifically with Tulu, but just in general, is the way that things are changing in college athletics. And some people say it's a good thing. I'm not sure that I agree. It's like at this point, the university and the athletic department really doesn't have a lot of leverage. The balance of power has shifted, I think, maybe a little bit too much to the student athlete. Whereas the point that you could have student athletes holding you hostage. Right? Let's say, for an example, like you look at this Jaden Rashada thing with Florida. We talked about him on the Monday show. He was initially committed to Miami. He flips to Florida. Now he is asking out of his NIL because some NIL out of his national letter of intent because some NIL promises weren't kept. And so is this going to be a semester to semester thing around the country? You're going to have players that say, hey, listen, the portal opens up on May 1st, and if I'm not where I need to be on the depth chart or I think I should be, I'm going to leave. I think you've got to structure these NIL deals where the big payoff comes after the portal window closes. You got to give them some incentive to stay. Now, this whole thing with Rashada just flies in the face of everything that we have been told about NIL. When they first rolled it out to us, they said there's a quid pro quo. There's market value. So I'll give you a good example. I won't give you amounts because it's not important. But my publisher paid Kellum Clark to do a video for us. I went and shot the video myself of Kellum Clark advertising for Dogpile. We're happy to do it. And so the value that we paid him was a fair and equitable amount for the time that he committed. It's not a lot of money, but he can take a girl on a nice date somewhere. I mean, basically 5 minutes of his time, he got a nice little payday. Well, that's legal. That's the right way to do things. But what's happening now with these collectives and things of that nature, like what could Jaden Rashada do that is worth $13 million for the University of Florida? You can say, well, he could be a star quarterback. He could lead them to the SEC championship. Okay, great. Then structure the deal that way. You can't do pay for play. But basically what's happening now is we're using the NIL for what amounts to illegal inducements to pick schools. And now you see that the Gator Collective is not paying off. And I read an article, and again, I didn't do the research myself, so I don't know for sure what's accurate and what's not. But that Scott Strickland had to get involved and talk to some of these donors and said, hey, listen, what's happening here? And the university should never have to get involved with fundraising efforts on the NIL. We talk about it being the Wild Wild West and Pandora's box or whatever euphemism you want to use. This is not sustainable. And somebody, whether it be the NCAA, the federal government, or whatever, somebody's got to step in and say, hey, we got to make some changes. Let's say you, John Q. Bulldog, somebody comes to you and says, hey, listen, we need $10,000 from you for us to get this player, or for us to keep this player, or for us to make this player happy. And you write the check for $10,000 because you're a good Bulldog. You say, hey, listen, this is the price of poker these days. I'm happy to help. I have it. God's blessed me. I'm eager to help bless somebody else. Well, then what happens? You write that check, and then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, that player goes in the portal. You're going to write that check next year? I would venture to say most people won't. And Nick Saban called that back in the summer. He goes, you know what? People are going to beat their chest and say, I got that player to come to Alabama. Then all of a sudden he gets hurt, or he's not playing, or he's disenchanted, and he becomes a cancer in the locker room. Then he leaves, and all of a sudden you don't get the return on your investment. It's like, I paid all this money for this kid to come here, and now he's in the portal, and he transfers to Auburn, or he transfers to LSU. Can I get my money back? Well, of course you can't. And then you start breaking this thing down and you realize, okay, well, maybe they didn't get the full $10,000 check you wrote. Where's the rest of that money going? There's just some things that have to happen here. I don't have all the answers. But I think what needs to happen here is we've got to have some type of declaration where we have a collective bargaining agreement. You know, one of the things that I've heard around the country talking to some of my media peers is, let's say, for an example, that you have 4 cornerbacks or 4 defensive backs, and they all start. And let's say you have a guy that's an NFL prospect. It's like, okay, we're going to give everybody $10,000, but we don't want this guy to go pro. We don't want this guy to transfer, so we're going to give him $25,000. Well, then the kids all get together and talk and say, what'd you get? What'd you get? What'd you get? Well, of course, it's all supposed to be confidential, but you know that it's not. Well, then the guys that got $10,000 find out that their teammate got $25,000. Now, you and I both know they're all in practice every day. Everybody knows who the better players are. But it's like, well, wait a minute. I thought he may get more than me, but why did he get more than double than me? Well, now I got to go back to the collective and say, hey, I'm going to transfer. You gave him $25,000. I only got $10,000. So I want $20,000, or I want $15,000. So where does it end? So you've got basically would have that defensive back holding everybody hostage, because he can always go in the portal. Now, there are some other players that have already used their one-time transfer exemption. So that if they transfer, they'd have to sit unless they're a grad transfer. And so in that respect, they don't have the leverage. And that's the point that I tried to make on Monday's show. What was so wrong with having people sit? Oh, but Steve, they should be able to play. Well, there has to be some type of protection for the university. And so, as I said on Monday's show, like we had some basketball players under Ben Howen that played very little and just said, you know, hey, they get here and they realize, yeah, I'm never going to play here. I'm not. You know, the players they play against, I'm probably better off maybe dropping down to G5, maybe the FCS. And obviously, if you drop a level, you get to play immediately. It's how the all used to work. But let's say, for an example, we have a basketball player that we sign him and he just doesn't progress. And maybe that kid's better off going to Southern Miss. Well, then we sign a waiver. They request a waiver for immediate eligibility. And we say, you know what, we're not opposed to this. Well, then grant him immediate eligibility. I think that's the problem with all of this, is we just said across the board, we're going to give everybody a one-time transfer exception. And so now it's like, hey, give me more money or I'm going to transfer. And that's not the case with every individual situation. I'm not trying to suggest that. But there are some problems on the surface with how this is being implemented. I think we could all agree. And people say, well, Steve, I hate the transfer portal. You know, I hate it too in some respects, but I loved it when we were rebuilding our baseball team. And so it's not always going to be all positive for Mississippi State. It's not. We're going to lose some players. We're going to gain some players. I mean, Mekhi Polk had the greatest season as a receiver's ever had at Mississippi State. We had him 1 year. He should have come back. He did. Steve Spurrier got in some hot water with some of you by saying he made a mistake. He did make a mistake. But I also understand the need and desire to bet on yourself. Doesn't always work out. You know, Beniquez Brown should have come back for another year. E40, Errol Thompson, should have come back for another year. And then Errol gets with the Falcons and has a really good preseason, and they elect not to keep him. I don't know what Errol's up to these days, but he would have made us a better football team. And again, we look at that's selfish, right? We're thinking about what's best for Mississippi State, and what's best for Mississippi State may not be best for the individual. We never know what young people are dealing with. I won't give you a name because I don't want to embarrass anybody. We had one player a few years ago that every time he got his monthly stipend check, he handed it over to his family. You didn't know about that? Yeah, they get a monthly stipend every single month to help with living expenses and things of that nature. But every stipend check he got, he gave to his family. And I think there were sometimes maybe he would get $100 or $200 out of that, but the family needed the money. Even though their kid was going to school on scholarship, the family needed the money. And so there are a lot of people out there that are dealing with things that you're unaware of. I've had some guys tell me before, it's like, hey, I'm going to go pro. Even though my feedback says I should come to school, but I think I'm good enough to at least make a practice squad. And you know what kind of money they make on a practice squad? That could change everything for my family for a while. And I believe once I get there, I can prove myself and maybe make the 53-man roster. And very few of them do. And so it's important to understand that. You have to be sensitive to the fact that many of these young people are not just your favorite players. They're people with families that have issues financially. And so that makes them at times a target for third parties that may get out here and say, hey, listen, if you get in the transfer portal, I can get you X amount of dollars from this place, and you know what? This school's going to pay up to keep you. And so now all of a sudden, we have made these street agents, used to they'd only deal with a handful of kids, and they try to exploit them for what they could get to get a kid to sign somewhere. Well, now basically, once a semester, we're having to deal with that again. We're having to deal with third parties that are reaching out, trying to broker deals for kids to get money for themselves. It's not a good situation. Even some of the players that you know well, that you may never have heard of, possibly transferring, some of them have been contacted too. There are people out there that have no scruples. It's all about what's in it for them. I think it's important to understand that. And so there has got to be a change. There has got to be something that happens that changes the course in which we're on. If not, we're going to be doing this every single semester. And as well as I do, there'll be some star players out there across the country. It's like kind of like re-upping their deal, right? It's like, okay, you survived the January transfer portal window. You did. You got through the fall semester window. And we get through spring practice, and all of a sudden maybe he's unhappy with his position coach. Maybe he's unhappy with the depth chart. Maybe he is unhappy with his proposed role in a new offense. Well, then all of a sudden he gets an opportunity to renegotiate the deal May 1st through the 15th. I just don't think that's the right way to go through things. We talk about it being amateur athletics, and it's not. And now guys are getting paid. But now we went from, okay, Steve, basically all they're going to be able to do is make some money off their jersey sales and maybe appear in a local ad or something, or be able to, be part of a national advertising campaign, and they deserve to be able to be compensated. They built the brand for themselves. And I was like, you know what? I agree. I do. This is not what they told us, though. This is not what they rolled out to us. We've been sold a bill of goods. And my point behind all that is you have these rules in place, enforce them. Everybody says you can't use the NIL as a recruiting inducement. Well, that should be easy to prove. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to be able to connect those dots. The Jaden Rashada case is out here publicly. I remember the Athletic, this time last year, I guess, or right around signing day last year, they had actual contracts from recruits. And so there's obviously a paper trail, and certainly there would be an electronic footprint. So go prove it. Make an example of somebody. And I don't know that that's coming. It should be. What's the point of having rules if we don't enforce them? And you can make all the rules you want. Cheaters are going to find a way to get around it because that's what they are. They're cheaters. If I'm a cheater, I'll be a liar too. But things have to change. And I think it's important to understand that I don't fault student athletes for using the system that has been rolled out to them. They didn't choose this. Jaden Rashada wasn't in those discussions when they decided we're going to open up NIL. The adults, the university presidents, the athletic directors, they were the ones that made those decisions. So we can't blame the student athletes for working for their own benefit within the framework of the system that the adults put together. And the thing that I go back to this, and again, I was fortunate enough that my oldest son played college baseball. And I'll still be paying for that for a long time. Went to a private school. He got a nice scholarship, but it wasn't enough. He had to borrow some money. He's paid that off. I had to borrow some money. I'm still paying it off. I didn't go open up a GoFundMe or anything like that. I'm just paying for it. I buy my own furniture. I got a bunch of shirts. My point being with all that is that playing college sports is a privilege and not a right. And every day that I got a chance to see my kid suit up, play for his university, play a game that he loved, it's worth every penny to me. I pay that loan payment gladly because I got memories that last me a lifetime. And again, that was on the NAIA level. He wasn't a D1 baseball player. I should have held him back a year. I mean, some of you guys hold your kids back until they're 20 as seniors or whatever, We didn't do that. Matter of fact, he graduated in a class of about 1,000 people, and he was one of the youngest people in the class. I probably did him a disservice, right? But he met his wife, and they got married, and they're very happy, and they have a little girl, and they brought a lot of joy to my life. But I can tell you this, there were a lot of his teammates that didn't get a chance to play beyond the high school level. And I remember that day we had the little press conference at school, the signing ceremony, and all those guys came, and they all got their picture made, and it was a shared accomplishment. And it is what's pure about college athletics. It's like, hey, Ani was our best player. He was the MVP as a junior and a senior. He was an all-Metro selection. He was an all-state baseball player. And the kids understood that, and they were happy for him. And so when he signed, and we had a little ceremony, and the advocate came, and they took his picture and everything, it was a big deal for them because that was their teammate getting a chance to continue to play beyond the high school level. Some of that has been lost in this NIL instant transfer thing. It's no longer the privilege. Now all of a sudden people used to always say, well, these players are commodities. Well, now the players see themselves as a commodity. It's like, well, if everybody else is going to benefit off my talent, then I should too. And you know what? I absolutely agree with that. But not at the point that we have to renegotiate a contract every semester to get you to stay. Because I believe that's where this thing is headed in many respects. Because guys talk. And they're going to be out there and saying, hey, well, wait a minute. You were driving an 85 Ford Escort last semester. How did you get this Chevy Stepside? Oh, well, I got it from NIL. Well, how'd that happen? Well, I want to get a truck too. I want to be able to go take my girl out on a nice date in a nice clean vehicle. How do I do that? And so it's going to promote dissension. Now, again, everybody knows who the better players are, and the better players deserve to be compensated. They do. And I think anybody that works out a deal, puts themselves in a good situation, if it's legal and permissible for them to be compensated, they should be. But the better players are going to have more opportunities. And guys understand that. And my hope is in that respect, maybe it's an inspiration. So you know what? I want to go out there and pick off 5 or 6 passes. I want to be first time all SEC. I want to go out there and do some big things. I want to go earn it. I don't want it given to me. And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of people out there. There's more people than ever in college athletics that have their hand out. More than ever. And it's not because of the fact that the kids are doing it or the students. It's the fact that the adults in charge of this waited around and let this thing unfold and explode in their faces, and now we're all picking up tab on it. All of us. Every single one of us. I talked with some people here recently that work at Mississippi State, and I said, you know what? It makes it tough to keep up with college athletics. It does. It makes it tough because it's like there's not a level of commitment that there once was. There's not a level of loyalty. It's like, I love your school. However, if your rival school is willing to give me a couple extra $1,000, I might love them too. I just, maybe it's because of the fact that I'm just a person that is, so adverse to change. Like when I make a commitment to something, like if I join an organization, I'm going to give them everything I have. That's not to say I'm going to be there forever. But while I'm there, I'm going to give them everything I got. And if I commit to a year, I'm going to give them a year. I'm going to do everything I can as long as I'm there. You know, when I married my wife, I'm married for life. That's the way I look at it. I didn't go into this thing thinking, well, if it doesn't work out in a few years, I'm still young. I got a flat stomach and a full head of hair, you know. I can find somebody else. And I'm not going to tell you it's not always been the best of times. That's life, especially when you're with somebody 30 years. But you make a commitment. And one of the things that I'm big on is if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. You know, there are circumstances at times in life, there's illness and things like that, and there are things that pop up that you can't control, but one thing you can control is your character. And mine hadn't always been the best. My reputation hadn't always been the best, and a lot of that's because of the fact that of the decisions that I made. And so I think when you make decisions for the right reasons, it's easier to stick with them. I mean, why did you choose a school in the first place? Well, if you chose them because they were willing to write the biggest check, you chose the wrong school. You know, I think being a Bulldog is a lifetime designation. I think when you choose Mississippi State, you're one of us forever. Now, if you quit, you run off, it's a little bit different deal, right? And some of those kids, like Reed Byes is a good example. Reed Byes, in my mind, is a Bulldog forever. Forever. Now, he won't finish up with us. He'll finish up at South Alabama. That kid loves Mississippi State. But he loves football too. And I think Reed Byes would rather have an opportunity to play at South Alabama than just wear the uniform at Mississippi State. And I respect that. I think everybody does. But Reed Byes didn't leave for a bigger paycheck. Reed Byes left for another opportunity. And so I respect it. I don't have any respect for this Jaden Rashada craziness. I don't have any respect for that. Well, I'm picking a school because of money. And then you find out they can't pay you the money. It's almost poetic justice. I know when Ani picked Williams Baptist, I know when we went up there, and I've shared some of this with you before, we had six visits set up, 6 unofficial visits and workouts set up. He had played a year of junior college ball in Mississippi, and we went to Williams, and we already made the decision before we got there. We're going to take all our visits. And then we get there, and they offer him a scholarship. And I said, well, Coach, hey, it's nice to meet you guys. Thanks for working them out. We'll give you guys a call, let you know what we're going to do. And then Ani looks at me, and he says, I need to talk to you in the hall. I get emotional just thinking about it. He said, I'm signing today. I said, dude, your mama hadn't even seen the place yet. He goes, it doesn't matter. He goes, you told me to make a grown man decision, and I'm making a grown man decision. And I said, well, tell me why. And he got tears in his eyes, and he said, this is where God wants me to be. It had nothing to do with money. It had nothing to do with being 9.5 hours from home. He knew where he needed to be. And the truth of the matter is, he had some people contact him at other schools after he'd had a couple of years at Williams and talk to him about transfer. You know, it's other players, you know. And they couldn't talk him out of it. It's like, hey, if you come here, it's a better opportunity. It's probably more scholarship money. It may even be a better education. And he's like, nah, I'm where I need to be. I wish more kids were like mine. All right, final segment of the show brought to you by your friends at Portico. I've told you guys before, if I was moving to Starkville now, I would move to Portico. I like it over there. I do. And trust me, a couple months ago, I even thought about, you know what? We're going to be empty nesters next year. Maybe I should put this house on the market and downsize and move to Portico and be real close to campus, be 1.1 miles away from campus. When I come home, you turn right off of 82 and boom, I'm right there at the house, right across from that neighborhood market. It'd be amazing. Decided not to do it. I guess in many respects, the wife decided not to do it. She goes, no, I want the kids to always have somewhere to come back to. And we have ball games or holidays. I want everybody sleeping at home. And I get it. I'm fine with that, right? Aren't you? But if you're thinking about maybe a second home or maybe just moving to Starkville, make it your primary residence. Maybe it's an investment property for you. I don't know. They've got answers for you at Portico. Give Brooks Bryan, my friend, your friend of Mississippi State, former Diamond Dog, Give them a call or text today at 601-416-8075. At 601-416-8075. You'll be glad you did. You can start with a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home, go all the way up to a 4-bedroom, 4-bath home, and really anything in between. They can give you a custom build. You know, phase 1's completely sold out. Phase 2 under construction. Some of those homes are already sold. Some are still available. There's also some lots out there. So, like, if you want to pick your lot and have a say in your house plan, you can do that too. I love it out there. I really do. You turn off 82 on the 12 like going to campus. You take that first right on Pat Station Road. You go through the 4-way stop. Boom, there it is. That's how close it is. But you're tucked away in a neighborhood, right? Not a lot of traffic out there, right? You're not right there on the highway. But you've got easy access to all the major highways in Starkville. So you can get in and out of here very easy. I'm telling you today, if I was moving to Starkville, there's no question I'd move to Portico. Make it your next move. All right, let's talk about a little recruiting here. There will be some weekend visitors this weekend. There will be. And we kind of touched on this a couple days ago. We've got the Georgia tight end was expected to visit this weekend. And that may be a 2-for-1 deal. You say, well, what do you mean, Steve? Well, Rylan Gaudet, of course, was supposed to visit this weekend, and that's been pushed back the next weekend. You know, they had that tragic car accident, and God bless everybody involved in all that, where a player and a staffer were killed and 2 other people survived. And if you see the pictures of that accident, you wonder how anybody survived that. But Ryland is going to be here next weekend, and as I mentioned on the show Monday, there's a connection there. Well, the connection is that he has a girlfriend. It's also in the portal. It's a volleyball player who also has an offer from Mississippi State. So they may come here together as a group. So you may have Zach Arnett and Julie Dennis working together to kind of make this thing happen. And State's got to get it some tight ends. We do. We absolutely do. We haven't been in the tight end business for a little while, and now we are. But we'd like to get Ryland for sure. Guy's been a part of 2 national championship teams at Georgia. And here's the thing, too. You know, Justin Robinson's coming here, too, and didn't play a lot at Georgia. Guy's going to be a star for us. And so this is where I think the transfer portal is a good thing. You get a guy that maybe gets down the depth chart that's good enough to play elsewhere, especially when you get a place like Georgia or Alabama. Now you get a chance to go somewhere else and kind of reboot and reset things. And you got to think, the day Ryland shows up, if he chooses Mississippi State, he is TE1, right? He is number 1 on the depth chart. And so it's his job to lose. And so he's got to come in here. There's not a lot of competition. I'm sure that we will go through, probably have some walk-ons and things like that come in to kind of give us some warm bodies to get through practice. And then we'll probably work the portal again in the spring. And to be honest with you, I think getting a tight end is probably a little bit easier to do. I think a guy that comes in the spring could still be a difference maker in the fall. It's not like he's a quarterback, right? But I think getting a guy that's a tight end that is still an integral part of the offense, but is not a guy that has to know a whole lot other than his own responsibilities. And so I think you could see a tight end or 2 that comes in the spring, or that makes the decision in May and joins the program in June and then is on the field in September. So if we don't get a tight end here in the next couple of weeks, don't panic. Don't panic. We're gonna get it done. I mean, Zach Arnett, every decision he's made so far, with rare exception, has been the right decision, right? I know many of you are big fans of Mason Miller. You hated to see that, and that's not a shot at Will Friend at all. Will Friend's a guy that we've wanted to be our coach on the offensive line for years and years and years. But Mason's a guy that we all like. And so you kind of hated that. But every hire that he's made, it's been a very good one. Every decision that he's made, it's been a very good one. And so we work through this process, and we have trust in Zach Arnett. He will staff this team and this roster out with the personnel needed to ensure that we win football games next year. There were some times, over the course of the last couple of weeks, we start thinking, man, we've got such a favorable schedule next year, we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot. I don't think that's the case. And you start thinking, well, you lost Ra-Ra, and you almost lost Xavion, and then you could have lost Tulu. Well, you only lose Ra-Ra, and you lose him to the 2-time defending national champions, right? Yeah, I don't like it, but I understand it, right? But Zach and the crew have done a good job kind of holding this thing down, kind of making sure they keep the roster intact. They've done a good job securing commitments. And so they'll do a good job. I think, again, we've got a small sample size, but what we know of the decision-making process of Zach Arnett's very positive. And so I think things will continue to trend in the right direction. Now, Mississippi State's going to host 2 junior days. Unfortunately, I won't be there this weekend. We'll do a junior day this weekend and a junior day next weekend. And so Paul will be covering that for you guys this weekend. We'll tag team it next weekend. I'll be back from New Mexico. I hope it's the last trip I ever have to make to Albuquerque, New Mexico, to be honest with you. So look for some junior day coverage at genespage.com this weekend. Nobody else is going to have that. We'll have kind of details and information about who was here and who wasn't here. And a lot of these guys are just kind of getting to know the process. The junior day is a big deal. Now, used to years ago, you expected to get commitments on junior day. And there are some of those, but it's not like it has been. There are guys that have been Mississippi State leans their entire life, and you want to take them and you want to get the ball rolling and build some momentum on the recruiting trail. So you kind of stage those commitments. It's like, hey, we're going to wait, and maybe you prime the pump a little bit and you tell that kid, well, what would you do if we offered you? A coach I'd commit on the spot. Well, then you do it at junior day. Because then the other kids get to see that stuff too, right? Oh, man, I need to be a part of this. That guy was a great guy, right? So there is a little bit of theater with all that. But nowadays, there's just not as much urgency in the early months to gain commitments. Of course, if you're the University of Georgia or Alabama, anybody that you take at this point is probably going to be a 4 or 5 star type guy. I remember a couple of years ago, there was this skinny, wiry cornerback from Grenada High School, and I took his picture, and I thought, this guy may end up being a Southern Miss kid. I don't know if he's going to be able to carry the weight to play in the SEC. Ends up being an All-American, right? And so a lot of times it's our first time to kind of get to know these guys, and it's brand new for them. Interviewing juniors this time of year is a lot of fun because their eyes are just completely wide open. And there's so many of those kids that will say, I will go anywhere to play. Anywhere. I just want an opportunity to play anywhere. I'll go anywhere in the country to play. And then, of course, when they decide in December, it's like, well, I wanted to stay closer to home. Because that's what happens in the beginning of the process. You're so desperate to keep your dream alive. What's moving a few states away to ensure you get your college education paid for. But then as they begin to get offers and they begin to kind of realize what their opportunities are and they begin to figure out what matters most to them, most of them stay closer to home. And that's the thing you look at, too, historically. And it's not a recent phenomenon. We've seen some of that happen in recent years. But when you have a kid from Mississippi go somewhere that's maybe outside of the SEC footprint, they generally don't stay. I mean, you look at DJ James, former Bulldog commitment out of Alabama, went to Oregon, ended up transferring to Auburn. I can't remember the running back, the one that played with Dylan at St. Joe, goes to Oregon, transfers to Florida State. And so you have that a lot. And so I think that's one thing, the numbers you can kind of show that more times than not, the Mississippi kids stay home or go and play in border states. More times than not. And I think with our commitment to Mississippi recruiting, you're going to see some earlier commitments in the spring. I think once we get a chance to get out of the spring evaluation period and see some guys and see how they move around and kind of see how they play, that we'll be a lot more aggressive with that. Anybody you take right now is a no-doubt type player, right? Somebody that you want to take. Like, I'll take him today. I take him into the process. And you got to get some guys in the wagon sooner rather than later to kind of start building the class. I mean, you think about Ty Jones last year. I mean, Ty Jones was a guy that committed to state very, very, very early. And there was never any drama with him at any point. And he'll finally get a chance to take his official visit this weekend. He was supposed to come when everybody else came, and he was recovering from surgery. And so he'll finally get a chance to come here and have some fun, be around his guys and his future teammates. And so you're always happy to see that. You're always happy to see those guys at the culmination of the recruiting process be able to take that visit. And he's already signed. Of course, Leon Bell was here last weekend, and he'd already signed as well. And so I think all that's important. But it all started more times than not for these guys with a junior day trip. A chance to come down and see the campus and tour the facilities. And their eyes get all big, and it's like, oh, my gosh, amazing it would be to come here. And that's one thing that Dan Mullen used to say, and I give Dan a lot of credit for this. We really committed to facilities when Dan was here, that if we could just get them here, because people are so pleasantly surprised because more times than not, maybe their high school coach played here as an opponent or toured here as a recruit, and they're not aware of all the updating that we've done to our facilities. And so they come in, and it's like their expectations are low, and then they're blown away because they've been under-promised, and then we over-deliver. And so I think that's an important aspect of things, too, is you just got to get them here. And you know what kind of people we are. I mean, who couldn't love us, right? You get our people here, you get them on campus, and that's one thing that I'll say, really no matter who the coach has been. Maybe when Joe brought in some Northern guys, it was a little bit different, and that's not a criticism of them. It's just there's just certain things about the Southeastern culture that's just, they don't call us a hospitality state for nothing, right? But we have done a great job over the years, especially with our support staff. Like I think about Andrea and everybody on that crew. They are so warm and welcoming to people. It doesn't matter who you are. When you walk in, it feels like, oh, well, this doesn't feel like a college. It feels like a family. And we throw that thing around. And that's the thing about the portal thing, too. It's like, we're kind of family with an asterisk. We're family with, with some conditions apply, right? But we do such a good job with these junior day events and these camp events where, your student workers and everybody involved with Mississippi State football recruiting do such a good job making everybody feel at home. And like Andrea is kind of an unsung hero. I mean, she really is. They do a good job keeping her around, but like she is the person that all the moms know. Like when they show up and it's like, oh, it's Andrea. So she goes up. She's from Morton. Her dad played at Ole Miss, ironically enough, right? But they come up, they hug her. Like, I mean, she's as big a deal as Mike Leach was to a lot of people, because that's their point of contact. And so this is really the first chance for them to kind of come in and kind of get to meet these people. And I know that our people will hit a home run with this. I have no doubt about it. Will there be any commitments this weekend? I don't know. You just never know at this point. I love early commitments because I love being able to break down film and rank players and things of that nature and write the scouting reports. I love getting to know what the new look Bulldogs look like. Some of these guys I've seen in person. I don't get out to as many high school games as I used to. I used to go to 3 games a week. And now I go to maybe half dozen a year. But that's the magic and joy of Huddle, right? You don't always have to go get out. When we first started covering games years ago, Huddle didn't exist. And sometimes you'd get a game film from a coach on a DVD and then you had to send a DVD back, right? A lot has changed. And so the access to information is unlike at any point in human history, especially from an evaluation standpoint, because, there's a lot of different websites we can get on and pull out film and that sort of stuff. And your coaches have more information to choose their players than at any time before. So excited about Junior Day. Sorry I won't be there this weekend. And, again, eager to get back next week. I'm going to have a good time this weekend with the wife. I can promise you. I'm going to look forward to that. But I'll be back next weekend, and we'll get some good pictures for you, and we'll have double-barrel coverage next week. But be sure this weekend to be able to check in at genespage.com. If you're not a member, you should be. And we'll be updating you. Paul will have like a Junior Day thread, kind of keep everybody abreast of kind of the comings and goings and just some observations, right? So it's insider information that you won't get anywhere else at genespage.com. All right, if you hadn't done so, go to dogpilebook.com, and you can order all my sports books there. It's Flim Flam, Alpha Dog, Stark Villains, and Dogpile. Bloomsville, Leander, available through Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, BooksAMillion.com, or your local bookstore. You can have them order it for you direct from Ingram. And if you're looking for Stark Villains gear, and you should be, get it at StarkVillains.com. I can tell you right now, there's somebody right now within the sound of my voice that wanted a Stark Villain hoodie or a Stark Villain t-shirt for Christmas that didn't get it, and you probably know them. So just go order it for them, right? They probably asked you for it, like, oh, I didn't know where to get it, or I forgot about it. StarkVillains.com. Go take care of it today. You'll be glad you did. All right, we'll be back on Thursday night, and it will probably be earlier Thursday night than normal. I don't plan to stay up all hours of the night because I want to hit the road early Friday and get as far as I can. I'll drive all the way. I'm a road warrior. I'll drive all the way to New Mexico, and my wife works Friday night, so then I'll sleep late with her Saturday, and then we'll get up, and we're going to spend some time in Santa Fe and have a great time. And I encourage you this weekend, get out and enjoy your family. If you've got a significant other, date night's always good. And Valentine's Day will be here before you know it. So you need to be planning ahead. Don't wait to the last minute. I know the ladies will take care of their end of it. Chances are the lady in your life has probably already got a good idea what they're going to get you, and maybe you hadn't even thought about what you're going to get them. Let me encourage you, to be thinking about that. I'm a very thoughtful gift giver. My wife will tell you I'm arguably the best gift giver in the history of the world because I put a lot of time and thought and effort into it. But I've given her so much over the last couple months with her being gone that I'm kind of drawing a blank myself. But I'm just going to tell you, don't wait till February 12th to kind of figure it out. Then you're dependent on like overnight shipping from Amazon. Be thinking ahead now about what you want to get them. And make Valentine's Day special. That's one of the things that probably has been driven home to me, kind of reminded to me over the course of the last couple of years, is you never know when it's the last one, right? And I don't mean that you break up or whatever. I mean, but God forbid something happened, right? I mean, how many times do you look back at your life and say, you know what, man, I wish I could have talked to my dad one more time. I wish I had this. Wish I had one more opportunity. What if this Valentine's Day is the last time you're together? So make a big deal. That's one of the things I've always done is made a big deal on my wife's birthday, even when she tells me not to. Make a big deal out of her birthday. And maybe I'm a fatalist in many respects. I mean, it's, you worry so much. Maybe I do. But I know this, that I think it's important that we celebrate the people in our lives that we truly love because they deserve it. I mean, when another person gives you their love, it's a gift. You didn't earn it. I mean, you may do your best to maintain it by returning your love and doing wonderful and thoughtful things, but if somebody gives you their love, it's a gift. And it should never be taken for granted under any circumstances. Even when you're a little bit mad, because you know how it is. Sometimes you send a text and maybe you didn't get the response you wanted. You send some heartfelt thing and you get back, okay, great, love you too. And he's like, I poured my heart out to her. Why didn't she pour her heart out to me? Well, sometimes it's just not able to do it. Or maybe they don't have the words to do it. But the reality of it is love is a gift. And I'm a big proponent of love. I believe I've got it tattooed on my arm. Love conquers all, and I believe that with all that I have within me. And so I encourage you, love those that love you and show that love in every way possible. Until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies and people can see a difference in the way we live.
If you're looking to get a new car, you could really cut expenses by bundling your car and renter's insurance with Progressive. Sure, you love your old car, but you know it's not normal to give instructions on how to open the window. It should be self-explanatory, but it's not. And notice how when you're in other people's cars, you can feel cushion in the seats? That's pretty nice, right? No, it's just normal. So bundle your renter's and car insurance with Progressive and put the savings toward a new car. It's time. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliates and third-party insurers.
With Tim Hortons 2 hot breakfast sandwiches for $6 deal, you can mix and match your favorites. Mix and match between savory sausage or naturally hickory smoked bacon. Mix and match between an English muffin or flaky biscuit. Any two served with a freshly cracked egg and melted cheese. You can even mix and match how you share it. One for you, one for them, two for them, or two just for you. There's no wrong way to mix and match this tasty deal. 2 breakfast sandwiches for just $6. It's time for Tim's. Limited time at participating U.S. restaurants. Single item at regular price. Modifications and tax extra. Additional terms apply.